Hey, Jonathan. Those things. Same old, same old. Nothing crazy. That would be nice. You get to the store today, or did you go over the weekend? I haven't been in a while. I haven't even been able to pick up like the new issues of Conan or anything. So things have been hectic, to say the least. Things are moving up. Things are moving at least, so that's a good thing, rather than everything being stagnant or in purgatory, or however, whatever descriptor for things being stuck in the mud you want to use. But yeah, some things are moving. I'll finally have some answers for later this year, which is good. I did just I had no time to start this today, so I just did a quick rough. This is for a Facebook group. And I am going to drop in, basically just do like a mock-up of a cover and drop in, the logo and such digitally after the fact, but I just have to leave room for it. So it's like, it's about a third. It's the upper third, so let's ballpark it. So like about like that. Maybe a little less. I know, I got to get the new Transformers. Yeah. Surprised you haven't been there. I know Craig swung by and picked up the new Transformers, and I was telling him this is like the first time I've been super psyched for picking up a Transformers comic, and I don't know, since I was a little kid. Hey, J-Bo. Yeah, just like in the description, last week's Conan was so popular, one of the Facebook groups wanted to do a Conan, so that's what we're going to do. Right now I'm just roughing out where the title lettering will go. On the old Conan comics, it pretty much took up, a big chunk at the top. And, I have a little rough here for what the drawing is going to look like. We have the big top there. We got the little corner box art we got to draw. Where the Conan part goes, and then the little sword part goes. Like that. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not alone in being excited for this. Daniel Warren Johnson just won a bunch of, Eisner. He's coming off of Eisner wins, and this is a big opportunity for them to put out a good book, and they got a good creator, and there's a lot of buzz. So I think it's got as good a shot as it's ever had. Even back when I worked at a comic book store, it was always a niche audience, like a small group of hardcore fans that picked it up. This version of the logo, I believe it was. You know, Rosen lettered a bunch of the issues. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Artie Simek. Just because of when the early issues came out, I'd have to look into the history. But that's a good question. I'll have to go to the Google machine. It is. You can read it from a million miles away. I'm just roughing it in. Actually, my cover that I did, I tried to let them, let me use the original, and they didn't want to. They were saving that for other variants, I guess. The C is too wide. Chop that down some. Move the O over. And you get the cool sword, How are things on your end, Rich? I love those was it the talking head cartoons you were doing? You posted some. I thought those were terrific. I am using no ruler right now, and I know that's a no-no. You should be using a ruler. But we got a long way to go tonight on this stream, so I'm just trying to move quickly. I just thought they were fun and a little weird, which I mean that as a compliment. I like stuff like that. I appreciate you popping in. I hope everything's good with the fam. You gotta be psyched with the ROM getting full reprint treatments all over the place for the first time ever. People can discover the goodness of ROM. I do wonder if Marvel will reprint the IDW stuff. I have no idea. Sometimes with those licensing deals, the company that picks up the license gets the rights to like the full back stock. I know that happened with like G.I. Joe and stuff back in the day. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've been doing them regularly for a little bit right now, and it's just it's a fun thing. I get to visit some of my friends that I rarely get to see. We can chat a little bit. I wish I had gotten to start this thing today, even a little bit, but I just had zero time whatsoever. All right, well, you can see where the trade dress will go. Let me get my little rough here. It's awful. It's a terrible rough. I can tell what's there. You can see the rule of thirds going into effect, but anyone else probably would be completely out there. Rich says there's tons of variant covers with coming out with ROM on them on other books. So Marvel is testing the water, but very excited for the omnibus with the X-Men ROM collection. Yeah, those ROM X-Men issues were, one of the few books mid-series that retain their value. Like you never saw them in like a dollar bin or whatever, because they knew they weren't being reprinted. Hey, Gregory. Yeah, we just roughed out where the title treatment will go. Here's the inspiration of that. I'm gonna get out of the way so I got more room. I don't have enough room here. It's terrible. It's really just like that's an unprofessional prelim. I appreciate that. Yeah, we will rough this down. Rules of thirds. When you're learning composition, these are some of your impact points. And it also helps you with your layering. Hey, thanks, Rich. Catch you later. Jonathan says it'd be interesting if they do new ROM and bring him back into the Marvel universe. Same with the Micronauts too. Yeah, I don't know. I would be interested to see it as well, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen. Here's our Crom character, which, you're not going to be able to see the whole thing. And then just breaking this third. It's Nikki Graves. How's Nikki Graves doing? My old college chum. This is the least exciting part of the drawing, probably, but it's actually, I think, the most important. Like, I think I've always believed that having the good layout is more important than having all the rendering skills. Liam Mitchell says, have fun. I'll try. I will try. All right, we needed to have our horizon line is like right here. It's basically the bottom third. We have Crom's giant chair here. He's like stepping down from, like the one leg up. Conan's sword crossing here, and then you get this nice. One of the things that is nice about this compositional idea is that it has a nice zigzag. Like you start at the title, sword brings you down, arm brings you back, sword brings you down, and then actually you'll see down here there's more elements because of course they wanted the damsel in distress. The client did so. He wanted a speech bubble, like a personalized one, but I think I'm going to drop that in digitally, like right here. So we gotta have like our little demon monstery guys. Ah, yes. Oh, thank you for nice words. Yeah, the old Curry days. It's been a while since I've been back. I haven't talked to Lori in a couple years, I don't think. I talked to Iris earlier in the year. She's doing very well. I did submit work to the alumni show that did not end up happening, but I did submit work, so it wasn't my fault. That didn't happen. So I'm actually just going to start with some fun part on this drawing because, like, why not, right? Let's get our blue pencil out. I did a quick expression study. I want like a surprised Conan, but obviously because he's here and he's looking here, the eyes will be looking down. So it'd be more like this. He'd be like looking down that way. We'll see what we get done tonight. Actually did quite a bit of drawing today. Was working on some badge art for Rhode Island Comic Con today. Which that's in November. And they just added a couple of new comic book artists. They haven't announced it yet, but they did add a couple of new artists today. So big market tease. I can't say who it is. They'll yell at me. I can tell you that there will be new artists going up on the site. I have no idea how far we'll get on this tonight. But we'll see where we go and just do the best we can. I appreciate everybody popping in. We got quite a few folks in the stream right now, so welcome to any new people. My name's Ian Nichols, and my middle name is Chase, and it's kind of ended up on like all of my work, so you've probably seen me listed as Ian Chase Nichols. So. I think I missed a question. Did I miss a question? I think I missed a question. Oh, Jordan said hello. Hello, Jordan, if you're still here. What's my favorite Conan story? Oh, we talked about this last stream. Tower of the Elephant for like the original stuff, Queen of the Black Coast as far as the pulps go. But like, I don't know, I love some of the original comic stories. There's a really good one right here. Basically anything that either Buscema inked himself or Dick Giordano inked or Tom Palmer inked. This is a great issue 38. And it's penciled and inked by John. And, it's the classic, like, something's harming the villagers. Look at those great inks. Look at the inks on that. Beautiful. All brush, 100% brush. And I think the only light source will probably be like a flame on the wall. We need a light source. That's what we're missing. So put the light here. Yeah, I mean, Red Nails is a classic, so it's another one that a lot of people really like. Or The Frost Giant's Daughter. There's it's not. I mean, I think my favorite Howard writing is actually the stuff he did for Solomon Kane. I think he did. I think there was. I think it was written better. It was definitely moodier. Hey, Michael, how are you? Thanks for popping in. Hope all is well. Let's see if we can get this hand coming forward a little better. Right now, we're really just working on the figure and the tubes and cubes, as I refer to them, which is how I break down the form. It's really easy for me to think about the shapes rather than the final product. Like if I think about, the way the fingers have to be rendered or something, then I'm going to get lost. But if I just think about those individual conic segments, it's easier for me to make my way through the drawing. Michael says he's well. That's excellent. Glad you're doing well. Haven't had time to make it out to that comic store you mentioned yet, but we will get there. We have the technology. We just have to have the time. Get this knee going forward. There's my terrible rough. There's my terrible rough. Michael says it looks like the book I'm working on is turning into a trade paperback in size. 72 pages have been 72 pages have been plotted so far. Hey Ethan, good to see you. Yeah, working on try to have them not. You don't want to have your characters standing still all the time, so try to have a little action. Probably going to turn his hips just a little bit so that they're a little bit more, a little more zhuzh to it. More. It's Conan. You got to give him like the big legs and the. He doesn't skip leg day, as they say. part of the arm would be behind that part of his chest. And we just see a little bit of shoulder there. Hey, Aaron, how's it going? Aaron's the person that runs that Facebook group. That's the Conan and the Tomb of Crom. And they post lots of art, and Aaron does not allow the AI art to be posted, which is great. That's why I keep hanging around, you know, other than just the cool content. Cares about the artists. What are the vertical and horizontal lines for? These are because of the rule of thirds. Generally, a piece is divided into thirds, and where these intersections occur is where you want to have bits of action. That's where the eye is naturally drawn. And I'm trying to account for it beforehand. You know, composition needs to be thought out, you know, especially in a case where you have elements like here. You know, we have the trade dress with the logo, and then we have the characters beneath it. So, and you know, the request was for a lot to be going on, so we have a lot to organize. So it helps me, you know, in my head to plan it out better. You know, it's the start of the grid. We've got, I don't know, 3 or 4 more characters to get into here. So I always give Conan some jewelry. I always thought he liked jewelry. Hey, my pleasure. I'm happy to draw Conan anytime anybody wants me to draw Conan. It is a character that I have a lot of nostalgia for. It's a lot of fun. You know, it's the adolescent fantasy stuff. You know, I enjoy it. And there's I like to add just a little bit of silliness to it. I know some people take it like super hardcore serious, and that's their right. It's fantasy. Enjoy it how you like it, but you know, I like the issue. There's an issue of Conan around issue 100 where he fights a colony of crabs, like giant crab people. And I don't know. I find Conan fighting like weird, not too big, not like gigantic, like weird crab people. I find that fun. Chuck Lee says, "You're my favorite guy to watch drawing comics." Thanks so much, Chuck. Hey, there are plenty of folks that stream drawing, and I'll take that as you saying I'm the best. There you go. Here's where how the shoulder connects to the pectoral muscle, and then the traps come down like that, and then this part of the neck, the middle part of the neck, because of this angle, it should be a little bit. It should not connect directly with where the pecs are, because the pecs are in front of it. So the middle of the neck is a little set back, you know. And we've got our light source over here. You like my dialogue? You know, you know, when I was a kid, I really had a hard time talking. I actually had a little bit of a stutter when I got nervous. So I really appreciate you saying that. So thank you. Conan's just fun. Desiree asks, did someone say Micronauts? Yes, Jonathan brought up Micronauts. I love the Micronauts. I feel like we have to go with the furry britches. Furry britches? Yeah, like that. Here, it's a weird little dinosaur guy that he's fighting. I mean, it's a little silly. But fun, super fun. See, it's like the size of, I don't know, a Honda Civic. You're the best because I can understand what you're doing, and it's not so much with other people drawing. Oh, well, thank you. I try to I don't know, try to explain what I'm doing as I'm doing it. We've got our Conan figure roughed out, which is good. All right. We're going to have a lady down here being captured as per they usually are in these comics. Show the other part of his leg, even though you're not going to see it, just so that you know that I know where it's being planted. Chuck says he understands the process. I've definitely had those art lessons where, when I was younger and they would explain something and I'd just be staring at them like, I have no idea what you're saying. And there's actually a really great story about Alex Toth meeting Jack Kirby when Jack moved to California. And, they had, this was in a Alex Toth documentary, and I think it was Mark Chiarello who shared the story. I don't remember who it was, but it was shared, on that documentary. And basically, Toth and Kirby, two of the greatest comic book artists ever, sat down and had hamburgers together and explained to each other from start to finish how they did a page. And someone asked Alex how it went, and he said, I had no idea what he was talking about. And then someone asked Jack Kirby how it went, and he said, I have no idea what he was talking about. So I'm glad my ramblings make sense. All right, we got our Conan. Where's my rough? My terrible rough. I like having expression, so we're gonna try to have her like yelling for help. Let's bring this up a little bit. There's the cheekbone. Get the shoulders. Have a hand coming forward so that we have some layering going on. And one hand going back. Some Frazetta hips on her. That's the end of that one. See, when I'm being lazy, and this is something that I've learned about myself, is that I will have concurrent lines, like say this is part of an arm, that are too reliant on one another. Like I'm mirroring rather than defining. Like I'll think about, how this and this are the same side of the same arm, when one line needs to be thicker, or we need to move things, or the muscle wraps differently around that part. Like I'm too focused on being symmetrical and not on defining what that shape is in space. And that's something I've learned about myself, and I've started to get better at catching myself at that rather than. Ethan asked, "Is this Cyclones and Jean Grey, right?" No, it's Conan. More Conan. It was so popular last week that Aaron was like, "Hey, I got to get me one of those." I do like drawing the X-Men, though. We've talked about that before. I was a hardcore X-Men fan growing up. I actually have like the whole run of the original Uncanny X-Men. I used to work at a store, and when collections came in that the store couldn't or wouldn't buy, I would be able to pick up big chunks of the run for pretty inexpensive from people. Let's make sure that we get this shoulder, and let's actually have the first part of the arm going further back, and then we have this part so that she has her hand planted firmly so that there's some weight to it. Hey, Jordan, you're back. Yeah, I did answer the question. I don't know if you missed it, but we talked about like the Frost Giant's daughter, Tower of the Elephant. Uh, but I like a lot of the originals that were done in the comics as well. Basically, anything that Buscema inked himself, or Giordano inked, or Tom Palmer. There's a ton of really fun, excellent adventure stories in there. I liked when Bruce Jones wrote Conan, when Gil Kane was there for a little while. I liked one really excellent original Conan story from the comics. Is called the Hiku trilogy. It was written by Christopher Priest and drawn by Val Semix, and Jeff Isherwood was the inker. And then there was another one that Priest wrote where just like out of nowhere, a dinosaur shows up in a village, and everybody thinks it's like this dragon or whatever, but it's just a dinosaur that hadn't gone extinct, and Conan has to fight it, and there's like a sad ending to it, and that was a wonderfully written story with nuance. It had character nuance. Like, I like Priest's writing a lot, so. He does look a little like He-Man. You're right. We'll have to fix the hair and everything, but there's some connective tissue. We all know that He-Man was inspired by Conan, right? We all are cool with it. My brother was a big He-Man guy. He was a little older than me. When I was a kid, I was more into like Ghostbusters and Ninja Turtles and the Tick and X-Men. But he liked He-Man. He liked Transformers. He liked he was just a couple of years older than me, so slightly different tastes. He does look like He-Man, though. Thundercats, yeah, my brother liked Thundercats more than me, for sure. Yeah, he was born in '82, so get my eraser going so we can clear out some of this space so that we know where stuff goes. That leg's too long, but we'll figure it out. Have I ever drawn He-Man professionally? No. No, He-Man was at DC, and it's moved over to Dark Horse, so maybe there's a shot, but I've never actually worked with Dark Horse on anything, so I only say that knowing that they're an independent company that is more likely to look at my stuff. And I actually, like I said at the last one, I knew that as long as He-Man was, as long as Conan, Freudian slip, um, was at Marvel, there was almost no chance I was ever going to get to draw him unless they did another crossover with like Dynamite or something with Red Sonja. So like when Titan was announced of acquiring the license, I just started bugging the heck out of them. I really did. Like, hey, can we do a variant cover or something? Hey, how you doing? So arm goes back here. Gotta have room for that elbow joint. Top of the hips. The stomach right in here. There's the rib cage. So let's grab that Conan that was sitting here. They basically all had like bikinis and long flowing dressy things, so what's the coolest character that even geeked me out that I've drawn? I mean, professionally, it was probably Conan, just because I read so much more Conan than I had the other books. But I was always thrilled to read, to work on anything that I had read. I had Ninja Turtles as a kid, and I ended up doing, I don't know, 7 covers, 8 covers, something like that. Um, I enjoyed, there were some that were not books that I read that I ended up drawing. Like, I was never a G.I. Joe guy, but I ended up doing a G.I. Joe cover because it was an opportunity to help out my client and jump in when somebody wasn't available, and I hadn't done it. So, yeah, and the Tick. I love the Tick growing up, without question. And that was, I bug NEC still to this day, just because I'm always like, hey, can we do something? Do you want to do something? Can we put a book out? And they have finished work that I've done just sitting on a shelf there. So I have no idea if they're ever going to publish anything else. No idea. Michael DeFonte asks if I'll be at Rhode Island Comic Con this year. I believe so, but I don't know for 100%. They know I live locally, and I only ask for a regular sized limo instead of a stretch limo to go to the show, like the big celebrities do. I just need the regular sized one. That was a joke. Am I still doing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? I haven't for some time. The editors I worked with and the folks that I worked with at IDW, I mean, they're all gone. So, and Tom has basically become the guy that picks some of the talent, and Ben's there, Ben Bishop. He does a lot of the stuff. So, I'm always down, but I don't think they have need of me. So I had been doing like a cover or so for every major event up until, shortly before Last Ronin, and then I didn't get asked to do any Last Ronin anything. So, that ship's probably sailed. Probably put one of those little armlets. Helps define the space. Like those armlets are absolutely useless for anything, but they do help define the space. Like as far as like showing depth, you know. I think I need to fix this knee before we do anything else. That knee needs some work. It's better. It's a better knee. Those variant covers sometimes they're one and done. Like I did the only time I've ever drawn a DC character was just for a variant cover. Was that TMNT Batman crossover. The GI Joe was a one and done. Even though I thought because I did it last minute that I would get future consideration, and it just didn't happen. The Power Rangers was a one and done. You never know how often you're going to get to work on things. That's why when I got to do my Conan cover, I gave it my all. I did a wraparound. I don't know if I'll ever get to draw Conan professionally again, but I feel like I put in the work. You see all the tiny little skulls and all the armor and everything else that, got the birds flying in the background. I gave it my all. I did. Chuck says I'm perfect for IDW. I had pitched them at some point, on doing creator-owned stuff with them, but they didn't have any interest. So, that's why I'm doing my own thing in November. I'm relying on all of you to help me get the full issue of giant-sized book of Undersea Hero out into the world via Kickstarter. And I've got a lot of other great. I'm hoping that Kickstarters can be a regular thing, so that you just get more finished books from me. I won't ask for a ton of money. You'll get a printed comic, chance to get some artwork, signed, variant covers by some of my really talented buddies, and hopefully it's fun. Yeah, I mean, that's what happens to everybody in the comics industry is that, like, you get in with some editors that like your work, and then they move on, and then you have to start over again. You have to pitch yourself all over again to the company, and maybe this group of editors doesn't like you. Yeah, that's part of the deal with like this freelance business model. I did share one post the other day that, if you guys are clearly you guys all support artists. That was about it was from Mike Plug, the guy who created, co-created Ghost Rider and Werewolf by Night, and he never had his artwork returned from Marvel back in the day, and that was a common practice. And he never got a chance to sell his artwork or give it to his family or pass it along or whatever he wanted to do because it was never returned to him. And I've seen some of his work in the collections of dealers who don't put them out on there for sale, because they know what they have. And because I personally have bought old pages and taken them to conventions and shown them to the artists and asked them if they ever had them returned or if they were, improperly taken and sold or whatever. And they said no. So they were happy to see their old work, but yeah, they said that they had bought it or sold it or whatever. Chuck says, "I'm saying it's about who you know." It's a combination of things. It's art, so they have to like what you do, and you have to be good enough, and you have to have a track record, and you have to know them. So, like, nobody's ever hired me because they, were like, "Oh, this guy sells 10 million copies." I'm a pretty modestly known artist at this point in my career, and I do work my butt off, but it's not like they're putting my name above any titles anytime soon. And one of the things is just being ready to capitalize on an opportunity when you get one. It's training for that race you don't know is coming. I see people who get cover gigs or whatever, and maybe they're not ready. Like early on, I wasn't ready. I was not. That first cover I did for Ninja Turtles, not a great piece of artwork. Which cover did I do for GI Joe? 244 ish. I have it here somewhere. Um, I can show you. It's in this binder. There you go. It's Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow, and Cobra Commander. 241, 244, somewhere in there. J.R. Wanzer, my high school chum, ex-baseball teammate back in the olden days. Had a college chum pop in, had a high school chum. We're still roughing it out, still getting the basic shapes in there, figuring out who goes where. You can see how terrible my rough sketch was. Oh, thanks. If you don't find it, I think it's in my web store. I think I have a few copies left. Anytime I did one of those covers, I bought a bunch of them. If I was allowed to. Sometimes you're not allowed to. Our little demon guys. I think we're gonna have to actually pull this guy's head back. Have it come forward. Yeah. Put the little demon guy like he's holding a lady's arm. It's a pretty run-of-the-mill trope. Although I think you're going to be able to see his legs, so we're going to have to figure out where his feet go. All right. We're going to have to raise up this chair a little bit so you can see what it is. Here's our vanishing points. Right now, that's my who skipped on drawings snake eyes cover. Oh, it was actually I was told, and it makes for a better story. So I'm going to choose to believe it. Is that it was the cover was originally going to Mike Zeck. He was going to draw a cover, and he just got busy or whatever. He's a guy that's drawn a million GI Joe covers. So what's one GI Joe cover to that guy? Hey, being able to say you pinch hit for Mike Zeck on a cover, not a bad backup. I don't mind being the guy called after Mike Zeck. That's not a bad spot to be in my book. We've got to rough in our Crom here. I want that arm coming back, so this shoulder should be ahead. So this is actually going away, so that arm should be like that. But yeah, being the backup for that was pretty cool. But again, it was a book I just didn't read as a kid. I did the best I could with the layout, the design. I actually had to do the layout basically, in a matter of an hour or so because the cover needed to be done immediately, like yesterday. So And some of those covers, like, some of the properties, they require if you're not a, an on regular artist, they'll have you do, drawing tests. Like, for the first Turtles cover, even though I still don't think I was ready for that cover. Um, they had me do drawing tests to make sure I wouldn't fall completely on my face. Let's get a Creature from the Crypt issue here. There it is. The Thing from the Crypt. Whatever. I was close. Close enough. All right, so it's like a stylized skull. It's not like a true skull. Running out of lead here. And these are just the roughs, man. Like, we've got a long way to go on this piece. This piece is gonna be 7-8 hours without even breathing hard, man. I'm not gonna draw the whole thing on the stream, of course. That would be impossible and insane, probably. But who knows? Maybe I won't get it inked until next week, so maybe we'll ink it on the stream. Chuck says he would have geeked out because he grew up in the 80s G.I. Joe cartoons and comics. I collected the figures too. Yeah, and it was an issue written by Larry Hama, so it's like, it's the guy. I actually had Larry just sign a copy of the comic. I asked him to sign the original, but he said he didn't want to because he was an artist and he didn't want people to think that he had drawn it or something. Which, whatever, that's his prerogative. And he was very nice about it, but he was happy to sign a comic for me. And cool dude. So his one leg is coming down from the throne. And then his other leg is going to have to be over here. There we go. Crom has to have a giant, crazy looking sword, right? It's like required, I think. Gotta bring that muscle down. I think you're actually going to see a little bit of his back here. Here's like the fire piece. And then there'll be smoke behind the logo going this way. This way. And then the caption is between gods and demons. And, here's our demons. We'll have another one over here, just, for the hell of it. Let's have a bigger one here. He's scarier. Part of his hand there. There we go. So we had little demon guys, and then we have our Chuck Lee says it's starting to look really great. I really like the beginning sketch stuff. Yeah, I mean, this is what's underneath it when we ink it. Like, this is all the structure, the storytelling. This is the drawing portion, not the finishing portion. So it's the part that I practice a lot on, probably too much, but and I think our background will be like stone. I think we need to have like a shadowed arch. It comes in like this. So like we'll have the stone background, but it'll get progressively, we'll have a little bit of light here. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, it's a circle. Yep, see, we had to talk our way through it. It's going to be a circle basically here. And then as we work our way out from the light source, everything gets darker. Tons of shadows here, here, here. And then as we come in, as we focus on this part right here, we want Conan to be the focus. We're going to have some really dark cast shadows, I think, coming across. There's going to be, Crom is going to have a lot of shadow on him, especially on this half of him. So that when we put the light right on this side of Conan's face, that it's really going to pop. That's what we want. Like the top of his head, this side of his face, we want him to pop. Ethan says, I met a G.I. Joe creator at my con, but I forgot his name, but he drew Snake Eyes with his signature for my poster. Very cool. Yeah, a lot of guys have worked on it. It could have been, Dave Johnson did some beautiful stuff on G.I. Joe's. Steve Kurth, is that the Image guy? Even my pal Daryl Banks did an issue of G.I. Joe for Image. He didn't get to do the cover, which was a shame, but all right. Now we can start to dig in a little. You've seen it. It's all blocked out now. Here, let's zoom out a little bit with my fancy hand crank zoom. And you can see the whole composition. I feel like the fire should be here, but it would make no sense for it to be there. Got our title, got all of our trade dress. Then we have our characters. We'll zoom back in with our fancy hand crank zoom. And yeah, it's 9:15. We'll start to get some rendering, and then we'll work on Conan first. keep in mind our light source is over in this direction, up and up and up. So, and I'm just keeping this underneath to not smudge this. And like I've always said, the penciling stage for me is the thinking portion. You know, it's not the finishing portion. Get that comic out of the way so I don't mess it up or get distracted. I could take a break and read a comic book. That's why I'm terrible at sorting my comics these days, because I don't get too much time to read. And when I get a chance to sort, I'll be going through my comics like, oh, this was a great issue. And then I'll just sit there and read it. Maybe we can zoom in more. There we go. Conan has very prominent cheekbones. No, we're not going to make it to inking tonight. We got way too much work before we can pick up a pen for this thing. I think we're too close. I think the camera's too close. It can't focus. See if that works. There we go. Foreshortening takes a lot of work. There's a book called Drawing Dynamic Comics that Daryl Banks did the chapter about foreshortening in, and that's the one that kind of cracked the code for me. Shading, my biggest recommendation is to honestly like just focus on where that light source is and think about how the light comes off of it. And look at photographs. Like, it's perfectly okay to look at photographs for lighting reference. I mean, that's even Rembrandt had models and candles and everything for his lighting reference, and mirrors. Camera obscura. can definitely feel my eyes getting tired. Yeah, we're gonna go shirtless Conan on this one. We did the shirted Conan for the last one. And the light being further away and being fairly strong, it's gonna cast a pretty long shadow, so I think we can actually black out a good chunk of where his neck will be. And then probably be a cast shadow on this side of his trapezius muscle. And sometimes it just helps me to talk through it a little bit. I know that sounds crazy, but sometimes I'll get into my own head and be thinking too much, like uh, too many things at once. If I say it out loud, I can't think too many things at once. I have to just say the one thing. I can only say one thing at a time, and it'll help me simplify what I'm working on. Because when my brain really gets moving, I'll be thinking about, the 2 steps ahead of what I'm doing, and I'll lose track of where I need to be and what I need to focus on, and that's a bad habit that I have. Is the saying filling in blanks, is that shading? Filling in blanks. Blacks. Um, see, in pen and ink, there's 2 steps. You only have black and white. So as far as like quote unquote shading goes, you have solid black areas, which would be like this cast shadow on his shoulder here. That's a solid black area. And then you have areas where you're going to have figure out your midtones, and you can do things like cross hatching like that. You can do things like um, feathering, which when you use a brush, it ends up being something kind of like this coming off. And you come back in with a lighter line and you create these dynamic ways to create screens and midtones. So like in comic book art cartooning, there's kind of a balance between the two. I tend to stay away from, especially on like different textures, stay away from cross hatching like on skin, regardless of the pigmentation. Like I just think it looks better if you use cleaner open shadow areas for my stuff. Some people do it beautifully, like Art Adams. Barry Windsor Smith can do no wrong with his cross hatching. And I tend to save those sorts of things for different textures. Like I'll use cross hatching for um, like a pants. I'll use a singular non-cross hatching, just singular linear shading like this, where you go like this for like stone. And then I'll use another one where I call it toss hatching, where I go like this and I come at an angle and then I come at it from an angle again. And you get this really fun, dynamic hatch that a lot of like the South American guys used to use, like Gonzalez and who was the guy that did Modesty Blaze? I don't remember, but anyway, like that's just another way to create different different screens. And then you can also use other things like Zipatone, which I love Zipatone. I think it does a more effective job for maintaining a comic book aesthetic and having like a toned area than some of the hand drawn tones, just because that was the tool that was used for so long. And in my mind's eye, that's what I see. I was telling a graphic designer that I was using Zipatone a few months back, and they were like, "Oh, I hate that stuff." I was like, "It's tough to work with, but it just has such a beautiful finish." The best manga artists in the world still use Zipatone. And we actually have the manga industry for saving screen film as we know it for illustrative reasons. Because Letratone, Zipatone, like all those companies went out of business decades ago. And I've been buying up old stock on eBay of this stuff and spending a fortune on it so that I can take those originals, scan them, and have them in my library of textures for when I finish a drawing in Photoshop. Like I could do Howard Chaykin did a similar thing. You know, he took his old backstock of Zipatone and put it on his computer so that when he finishes a drawing, and if it needs a zip, he can just digitally cut it out with the lasso tool and then paste it in there. Now here I also have to be cognizant of what's in the foreground and background. Like if I had a light, I'm going to have a texture back here. There's going to be a rock texture. So what I'm going to want to do away from this light source is carve out some more of those solid dark areas so that the figure really pops. I'm not a big fan of just putting in rim lighting to just have it. Some people are really excellent with it, but I think that really needs to be used carefully. A lot of people use it as a crutch for sure. Because it looks neat when you do it right. It looks really neat. Um, well, they're not making it ever again. So, like, I actually bought one of the lots that I bought. I've been looking for lots of it for years. Like, I had one of those Google alerts, like the eBay alerts if it comes up or whatever, and it didn't come up. And then within like a 3-month period, I found two big lots of it. And one was from, I would say, the mid 60s, and then the other one was from the 80s. And one of them shipped all the way from England, and it had some really cool textures, really cool. Not just screens, like there were trees, there were Zipatone, all kinds of stuff that I'd never seen before. So in my spare time, I've been scanning them and putting them in digitally. So whenever I get them done, I will make them available for people to use. So everybody, there's always someone who asks me after I bring them up. I don't know when I'll be done with them, but I will absolutely make them available for people to use. I'll probably just put them on my website as like a downloadable zip file or whatever. Because I'm also trying to make uh, Photoshop brushes out of them that work seamlessly, and that's been tough. I've tried a few different ways about doing it, and it's hard to get the screens to line up all the time, regardless of where you're at on the grid. So, but I'm working on it. Whenever I get it done, I'll do a big post of like my gift to the comic book making world. Go forth and make beautiful comics or pet pictures or whatever you want to do. I do tend to give my figures a more modern build. Um, it was something that actually Howard Chaykin pointed out once when he was going through my portfolio. I don't know why he did. Like he was just bored at a convention, and I was polite, so he paid me a great compliment. He's like, "I've seen garbage, and this is not garbage." I don't need praise, but not garbage from Howard Chaykin. I'll take that. Okay, our light source. Keeping our light source in mind, we actually are going to need more dark areas in here, which is going to make him look more ripped than I would normally like, just because of the amount of shadow that's going to come in here, but kind of feel like it's unavoidable. If I like how this comes out, I'll color it and make it look like a finished cover or whatever, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. And usually when you make a fist and you're holding something, the knuckles aren't aligned. You know, if you flatten them out like that, they don't actually look like that. So what we can do is the first one's usually pretty far ahead, and then the next two you can ladder them down. There we go. Light source. Keep thinking about the light source. It's 9:34. We're moving along pretty well. We got a lot of it laid out. Got some of it penciled. I kind of avoided some of my normal like computer stuff today because I find that certain computer work really hinders my drawing. I don't know why, but like my brain doesn't reset. You know, if I spend too much time on doing like social media or even just graphic design stuff in like InDesign, if I do too much of it, my brain gets stuck in that mode and it's hard for me to get out of it. Chuck says he'll probably watch this a handful of times to soak it up. Well, thank you. I hope that you glean some insight. Right now, it's more like I'm thinking about it in a way that is like sculpting. You know, I'm trying to look at what the shadows would look like from different angles in my mind and how to define the shape. You know, because I use very simplified muscles. Like I don't do exact anatomy for everything. I need believable. I don't need realistic, and that's enough for me. Like to tell the story. Because to me, this whole image is as much about writing the story of what's going on as it is drawing it. You know, I don't like pinup covers to draw. I really don't. I like storytelling covers. And, you know, I understand the appeal to both. Like, and some people only like, you know, pinup covers. That's fine. But like, I have a hard time getting through them personally, like drawing them. It's hard for me to focus on just the rendering. They just want it rendered really pretty. And rendering just isn't my strong suit, like compared to structural drawing and storytelling. And here we're going to need some really dark. We're carving this figure out of the paper. That's what we're doing. And because of the angle of where the light is, the only light that might be on this part of the leg is up here, and then are we going to get any light here? I don't know if we are. I mean, this arm is going to cast a shadow like this because of where it's at. There's going to be a cast shadow from that arm. Right now, I'm just kind of winging it, trying to go with what I think it looks like, and then we'll see if it works. My thumbnail sketch? Oh man. Here's the Conan with like this is his hand here. There's the sword. There's his arm like that. One leg this way, that way. And then like here's like the little squiggle. It's like this lady. The gigantic head. But I got the one leg up. See, there's the leg right here. And then over here, here's the leg right here. And then here's the leg underneath. Like I didn't even finish where the knee was. But here's the leg underneath. And then I had a little head here. I made it bigger so that it pulled it forward. And then I pushed this one back a little bit and up. And I actually had one standing here. I had one here. Oh, hell, let's just put another one in there. Shits and giggles, I guess. There we go. Sorry, I didn't know I was drawing off screen there. I just kept moving down the figure. You know who draws really wonderful, believable anatomy that, you know, and somebody will yell at me probably for saying it's not 100% accurate, is Alan Davis. Like he draws wonderful, one of my favorite artists. Wonderful figurative work. But like if you look at where those muscles are, he kind of tables some of them. And what I mean by that is he's not drawing the whole muscle. He indicates where the muscle is with his ability to feather. Like he's phenomenal at that. But you're not drawing that muscle out. You're just indicating where it shows up. And he's one of my favorite artists. Like I'm not, and he's better than I'll ever be at anything comic related. And it's not meant as a dig, but it's just style. I mean, if you want to call it stylized, call it stylized. But it's like a varied anatomical change, and it's to be more dynamic, I think. we go. Get that sword looking nice, at least nicer. I'll have to break out the ruler to when I ink it to fix any issues with it. Fix that cast shadow. And there is a formula that you can learn, like for gauging the amount of spotted, it's called spotting blacks, that goes somewhere. And it has to do with the distance from the light source. You can see how this one, the size of the object, how much the light wraps around the object, and just how much you need to show to get the idea across. You know, Mike Mignola is just a master of carving shapes out of single areas of light and dark, positive and negative space. Could be the best, modern one. I mean, Toth is probably the best in the, in all of comics at that. It's a mastery of silhouette. I actually think I'm just going to black this out. That way we don't have to worry too much about what's below the knee there. Aaron says, looking amazing. Thank you, Aaron. Glad you dig it. Yeah, we're working through it. There's our Crom with a giant sword and the Conan. And here's the giant chair that he was sitting in that he's like getting out of. And we'll have, some hanging stuff, and we'll put some spider webs and things like that and make it look old. Chuck says, I like Alan Davis. He did some X-Men stuff that was nice. Absolutely. He did X-Men. He did a wonderful short run on Detective Comics back in the 80s. He did the original Alan Moore collaboration with Captain Britain. That's a great one. I loved his Hulk, Savage Hulk. He did a 2-part Conan story, actually, in Savage Sort of Conan from Marvel recently. So what do we want to draw next? This is pretty well penciled in, I think. This is about as finished as I need it to be for me to ink. All the information's there. I'm going to keep adding little bits to it, but that's about where I like to be when I start inking the Conan figure there. That's as far as I need to go. It's 9:45. Let's work on one of these little monster guys. This is an example of me just designing on the fly. I did not do any prelims. I had no reference. I just came up with these monsters as I was going, and it's not generally how I operate with this sort of thing. I usually do some sketchbook work, but like I said, I had 0 time today, and I'm committing a lot of time to this piece that I don't have. Light source is here, so we're actually going to have the shadows coming in this direction. Like this ear is going to have a cast shadow that comes down his back, like that. Yeah, Alan Davis is a guy that I will pick up, anything he's working on, I will pick up and check it out. Even characters I don't care about, I will check it out if he drew it. Um, he did a book for DC called The Nail, which was an Elseworlds. They did 2 parts to it. It's freaking amazing. Ugh. I think you'll see a little part of the other ear, about like that. Oh, thank you. Hey, I wanted to be something good. You said it was for the group, so this is what we're doing. I know it's very late or very early where you are, depending on what your schedule is. So thanks for popping in. We're gonna have a lot of shadow here on this figure, and then I think the way it looks right now, there's gonna be heavy shadow under this side of stuff and around and this side, and then there's probably gonna be a cast. I don't think there will be. I think the cast shadow would be over Conan, but we're gonna fake it so that you never obscure the main figure. So yes. Andrew asks if this is Crom behind him. Yes, just like in the original comic series, the creature, the thing in the crypt, the Sal Buscema classic. And he's coming down off of his chair. He's got the big chair. I'm just going to give him 4 fingers because I don't feel like drawing 5. Hey, designing on the fly. And then the caption for this will be between gods and demons. We got our little demons, we got our gods, got our big chair. I think we got everything that I was asked to provide here. Well, I think I'm running out of gas, so might call it a little early, but we'll zoom out and we'll get a look at the how much progress we made from a blank piece of paper. But yeah, from a blank piece of paper, from whence we started, from a bad thumbnail right here. That was our thumbnail. You can see there's Crom, Conan, and yeah, it's going to take me a while to finish, but thanks for everybody for coming to hang out tonight. Yeah, we'll see you all next Wednesday, same time, same place, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Chuck, I would say Daryl Banks for foreshortening. If you're looking for like what's the word? Exaggerated stuff, like guys like Ramos, Madureira. But yeah, if you're looking for more realistic stuff, like Daryl, Al Williamson, Karia Andrews is another one that does really good foreshortening. Craig Russo, amazing foreshortening. Joe St. Pierre does great foreshortening. Yeah, it just depends. Feel free to PM me or DM, whatever moniker, and just let me know what type of foreshortening style you're looking for, and I can point you in the right direction. So, but good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.